It will be broken up like this on your quiz. It'll say solve by factoring, solve by taking the square root, solve by using the quadratic formula. So it'll actually tell you which way to solve. All right, so you'll notice number 1 is already factored for you. So you literally just have to set each group equal to 0 and then solve. So you have n minus 2, set that equal to 0. And we have n plus 3, set that equal to 0. Solve for your n. And you will get your 2 answers. Positive 2, negative 3. The other 2 are not factored. So remember the requirement is has to be equal to 0. You'll see that 5 is equal to 0. You can go ahead and factor it. But 9 is not equal to 0. We'll have to make it equal to 0 before we factor. All right? So you do have to check, are they equal to 0? Because they're all going to be mixed in. So this one's equal to 0. I'm looking for factors of 6. They have to multiply to give me negative 6 and add to give me negative 5. What are those?
Negative 2 and negative.
So minus 6 and plus 1. Negative 6 times positive 1 is negative 6. Negative 6 plus 1 is negative 5. And then again, set each one equal to 0. P minus 6 equals 0. P plus 1 equals 0. Add your 6. P is going to equal positive 6. Subtract your 1. P is going to equal negative 1. So then number 9 is not equal to 0. So you have to move your 3 over to get it equal to 0. So move that 3 over. Negative 11 minus 3 is negative what? There we go. All right. These factors have to multiply to give you negative 14, but add to give you negative 5. Right, so we have, wrong variable, k minus 7, k plus 2. Negative 7 times positive 2 is negative 14. Negative 7 plus 2 is negative 5. So set each one equal to 0. This is going to give you k equals 7. This one is going to give you k equals negative 2. So for these, you could have the square root all by itself, or you might have to get the square root all by itself. You could have a perfect root, or you could have something you have to simplify. So those are the basic things you're going to see with taking the square root. You could have one like 15 that is just the square's already by itself, and you really just have to take the square root of both sides. Remember, though, what is the square root of 5? 25 is 5, right? But because there is a variable involved, what do I need to worry about here? Positive and negative 5 could work, right? Anytime you take the square root with the variable, you have to consider the positive and negative root. Negative 5 squared is 25. Positive 5 squared is 25. And so your answer here would be positive or negative 5. So that's one type. It's already by itself. The other one, it looks like number 24. It is not by itself. So before you do anything with taking root, you need to get the square by itself. Subtract your 5 over. So you have 5x squared. This guy canceled. This is 120. You still do not have the square by itself. And 5 doesn't have a perfect root. So divide both sides by 5. So you have x squared. What's 120 divided by 5? 5 into 12 is 2, right? With 2 left over. 5 into 20 is 4, right? Does everybody see how I did that? Right? I just do 5 into the first 2 and then put my remainder and then 5 into those. Right? That's just basically long division, just shortened a little bit. All right, so 24. Now I'm going to take the square root of both sides. All right, square root of both sides here. All right. 24 does not have a perfect root. Okay? So when it does not have a perfect root, then you are going to need to use your factor tree to figure out what x is. So we're going to say 2 and 12, 2 and 6, 2 and 3. And just like we have done the whole time, if it pairs up, it's going to come out of the root. If it does not pair, it's going to stay in. And if multiple things come out or multiple things stay in, you multiply them. So 2 and 3 stay in, which means a 6 is on the inside. So this is what x is going to equal, but I did a square root with a variable. What do I need to put in front of that 2? Yeah, the positive negative sign, because it is both positive and negative of that answer. So that is my answer there. Quadratic formula is negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. This is what x will equal. Two things. It has to be in standard form equal to 0. Has to be in standard form equal to 0. If it is not, you must do that first before you apply your quadratic formula. A is the number in front of x squared, b is the number in front of x, and c is your constant. You do not have an x anywhere in the quadratic formula. That's what x equals. You only use numbers in there, okay? So in this situation, my a is positive 2, my b is positive 4, my c is negative 10. Okay, and then I'm just going to take those and plug it in. All right, so negative b is 4, so I'm going to say negative 4 plus or minus the square root of b, that is 4 squared, minus 4 times a times c. And that whole thing is over 2 times a, which is 2. All right, I'm just going to do order of operations here. Work the inside of my radical. So I'm going to just leave that negative 4 out here alone. What is 4 squared? Not all at once. There we go, 16. And then I have 4, 2, and 10 with 2 negatives. What's going to happen? Positive 80, right? 4 times 2 is 8, times 10 is 80. And I have the negative in front of the 4 and the negative in front of the 10. That's positive 80. All over on the bottom, 2 times 2 is 4. All right. On the inside, 60 plus 80 gives me what? 96. So I have negative 4 plus the square root of 96 all over 4. Does 96 have a perfect root? All right, what goes into 96? I would use 3 here just because it's a bigger number. So 3 and 32, right? And then we have all 2s. 2 and 16, 2 and 8, 2 and 4. I'm going to run out of room, and 2 and 2. All right. So I have a pair of 2s here. A pair of 2s here. Everybody see that? So far, so good. And then I have a 3 and a 2 that don't pair up, right? So I have negative 4 plus or minus 2 2's came out. What do I do with them? Multiply them. 2 times 2 is 4. What stayed in? 6 all over 4. Remember, in order to reduce like this, all of my outsides have to be able to reduce, right? Which is nice. They're all the same thing. What goes into 4, 4, and 4? 4 does, right? So 4 divided by 4 is 1. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 4 divided by 4 is 1. If the only thing you have in your denominator is a 1, you can just ignore it, because anything divided by 1 is itself, okay? If it was any other number, you have to leave them there. But it's a 1. So if your denominator is a 1, you can just ignore him. If your numerator is a 1, you can't just ignore him, okay? So my answer is actually going to be a negative 1. I have that in my numerator, right? Plus or minus 1, which I don't actually have to write him, square root of 6. And it's all over 1, which just, I don't have to worry about. So my answer is negative 1 plus or minus square root of 6. So I'm going to leave that alone. It's done. All right, so I have standard form equal to 0. I'm good to go. My A is going to be positive 6. My B is positive 5. My C is 4. All right, I'm going to plug it in. Negative B, that's negative 5. Plus or minus the square root of b squared, 5 squared, minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. All right, let's simplify. Negative 5 plus or minus, what is 5 squared? 25, there we go. All right, I have 4 times 6 times, all right, 96 all over 2 times 6 is 12. All right, I want to ask you a question. What's going to happen when I say 25 minus 96? It's going to be a negative number in a square root. What's my problem? Not possible. It is a square root of a negative number. Negative number. That is not possible. This is no solution. If you get a negative inside your root, it is no solution. You cannot take the square root of a negative number, okay? You can't take a square root of a negative number, all right? So if your b squared is smaller than your 4 times a times c, then it's going to be negative, right? All right, so pay attention. It doesn't always mean it's going to be negative just because you didn't have a negative, to multiply with. Because had that been like 4 times 2 times 3, you could have done 25 minus 4 times 2 times 3, okay? All right, but in this case, your b squared was smaller than your 4ac, and you were subtracting. And so you ended up with a negative in there. So this is no solution. That is your answer. I think on your answer key it says the words no solution. You can write no solution. You can put an empty set, which is that little guy right there. All right, but it is no solution. Last one. This last one has a problem. It is not equal to 0. So I can't do anything with it yet. What do I need to do first? Move my 8 over. So I'm going to move that over. So it's going to be plus 8 over here. 2v squared minus 6v. What is negative 17 plus 8? Negative 9. Now it is in standard form and I can do it. All right. Negative b. My b is already negative 6. So what am I going to write for negative 6? Positive 6. Plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. All right, 6 plus or minus. What is negative 6 if I square it? Positive 36, yes. 4 times 2 times 9. So 8 times 9 is? And it was a negative and a negative, so it is a positive, right? All over 4. All right. Keep going. All right. 36 and 72 is what? 108. All over 4. All right. 108 does not have a perfect root. Yes. So I probably need to do factor tree. What goes into 108? 2 does. So does 3, right? 2 and 3 both go into 108. So I'm going to just do it over here. Let's see, 108. I'm going to run out of room. 2 and 54. 2 and what? 27. This is 3 and 9, 3 and 3. All right, so what comes out then? Well, we have a pair of 2s right here. We have a pair of 3s, and then we have this little guy that's in there. So I have 6 plus or minus. What came out? A 2 and a 3. So I'm going to say 2 and 3 came out. So I write it as a 6. A 3 stayed in. And on the bottom, I have a 4. What goes into all of my outsides? 6, 6, and 4. What goes into all of those? 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So my answer for this guy is going to be 3 plus or minus 3 square root of 3 all over 2. And I am done.